what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another interlude episode of RotoBallers' official MMA podcast. Tab that this should be coming out on Monday. Look forward to my UFC picks episodes coming out later this week and all of my USFL gambling content. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. And with me today, she won't be able to buy alcohol in the United States for another 2 years, fighting out of Missoula, Montana, a 2-0 amateur flyweight fighter. Give it up for Kailey, the Aggressor, Frank. Kailey, thanks so much for being here today. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Kailey, you still there? Kailey, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go. All right, so Kailey, let's get right into this. How did you get into mixed martial arts? What's your background?
Um, so the reason I got into mixed martial arts was Ronda Rousey. I started watching her fights when I was I think I was 8 years old. That's when she first got into the UFC. I thought that was super cool, and I told myself ever since then, I was like, I'm gonna be an MMA fighter one day. Nobody believed me, but I was determined to do it. So when I was 14, I finally made it into a gym. And ever since that first class, I've stuck with it.
Isn't it amazing how Ronda Rousey, with her presence in mixed martial arts, had that ability to inspire a generation of people to go into a sport?
Oh, yeah, she's amazing.
And remains, she still has got to be one of the most recognizable faces internationally in the sport.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And so last week, actually, we had to push this back a couple of weeks because you had to do some animal rescue that lasted all night. I have to ask just one follow-up about that. So what exactly do you do in that respect?
So it's not something I'm able to do often, but I had gotten a text message pretty late that there had been some baby geese and chicks left at the post office for days, and they were dying. So I got the opportunity to go get them. I ended up having to spend all night to get them warm and rehydrated, try to get them eating. Luckily, most of them survived, which is pretty cool, but they're all doing really well now. So,
wow. So that it wasn't exactly what I expected, but that is super interesting nonetheless, and glad to hear that those geese and ducks mostly made it out.
oh yeah,
And so your last fight, according to Tapology, and sometimes that's not completely correct, it says your last fight was December 10th of 2021. Is that true?
that is correct.
And so that was a third round knockout TKO against Cheryl Rush in Fusion Fight League. So basically, before we get into how those first two fights of your career went, what has been the cause of not fighting in that time? Has it been kind of a mixture of circumstances and just, that's how the regional fight circuit goes sometimes, or has there been some other reasons?
Um, I mean, trying to find someone as a female to fight is difficult. I mean, there's dropouts all the time, and just finding somebody to actually accept the fight has been hard. But also injuries. I mean, that's basically what I've just been dealing with, and it's been frustrating because if it were up to me, I would have already had like 20 fights, but uh, my body chose otherwise. So until I'm like fully healed and ready to go, but mostly the reason of just injuries, but also trying to find somebody to fight.
Well, how's your recovery process been going?
It's been good. It's been slow, but it's been good.
Well, that's good to hear, and hope to see you in there. When you're 100%, and hopefully that comes as soon as possible. And your first two fights came in Fusion Fight League, and so were both those fights in Montana?
Yes, they were. My first one was in Billings, Montana, and then my second one was in Great Falls, Montana.
And so, what's the Montana MMA scene like if you had to describe it to someone based off your experience so far?
You know, it's actually really good. For starters, Fusion Fight League always does a great job. Montana MMA is growing, which is really, really cool. When you think of Montana, you don't really think of martial arts, but there's actually a lot of talented people here. And so to see it growing and to see athletes coming in from other states and it's really cool. But there's always a good crowd. Last year, there was fights here in Missoula, and it was like over 1,000 people in attendance, which was really cool.
Billings has always struck me as a city that seems kind of primed for mixed martial arts success. Because I know it's kind of like a slept-on cool city, and they have at least a lot of like microbreweries. It seems like it has a good beer scene, so it seems like that seems to go hand in hand with mixed martial arts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So your first fight against Casey Cummings, who came in with a bit more amateur experience than you, you got a split decision victory, April of 2021. Did you evaluate your first amateur fight?
Um, Man, she was a really, really tough lady. I mean, I took a tough fight for my first fight, but I was pretty happy with that. I was pretty nervous my first fight. When I was in the back right before, I was like, wow, this is really happening. The preparation going into that fight was really good though. I had a great camp. I had great teammates and everybody worked with me really well. But that fight really opened up like reality of to what MMA was, because I always watched fights through a screen, but I had never obviously experienced one in person. So that was an eye opener to me, and to be able to experience my first fight the way I did was just phenomenal.
And so, how did you think that you grew in between that and through the Shara Rush fight that you were able to finish inside the distance?
Like during that fight?
Well, like, the time in between your first fight and the second fight, and just how you evaluated the results of that second fight against Rush.
Um, well, I'm more of a brawler when it comes to fighting, and uh my coaches don't really like that very much because I like to just go in there and just throw and make it a bloodbath. And that's not always like the smartest thing. So going into my second fight, I was told like really like don't just run straight on and brawl with her. Like, take your time, really be technical with her. So becoming more of a still having that brawler style, but putting more technical ability to it. And just having that experience between the two fights and actually knowing what to expect in a way. My second fight, the weight cut also went a lot better too.
Well, so do you think that maybe like that uncontrolled brawling style, it was maybe a result of the nerves of your first amateur fight?
Um, in a way, yes. I was getting hit so hard that like the only thing I knew to do was just go. And I was like, well, I guess it's just gonna throw. I don't even care about technique at this point. We're just gonna throw. And I just let everything go, and I pushed myself through that fight. I told myself I'm not gonna lose this first fight, and I basically just went for it.
And so is that where you feel the most comfortable right now stylistically, is on the feet, high volume and living up to your nickname, the Aggressor?
Absolutely. I love wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I obviously have been training jiu-jitsu as long as I've been doing MMA, but I would prefer striking. That's what I love the most.
And so, what do you think right now? And it's hard to say, and it's hard to say what you've been working on in that time when you also have had to focus on recovering from injury.
Right.
What are the aspects of your game that you've evaluated and wanted to make greater strides in for when it's time for you to return?
I've been doing a lot of mitt work, and I've been doing a lot of small technical stuff in jiu-jitsu, but I just wanted to work on the things that I knew I was weak in, like basically anything. Uh, I like to film myself to watch it and look and go, oh, that's something I could work on, and that's just basically what I've been doing. So it's a lot of different things between stand up striking and on the ground as well, just a bunch of little things so that way when I'm able to fight again, it's just working on the intensity.
And I guess that is a hard question because it's like you're 19, you want to you wished you had a lot more fights, in that span when you haven't been able to fight. So, really what you're working on is you're probably trying to work on everything as much as you can.
Right, yeah.
And that has to be made a little bit easier with the fact that you have some great training partners. And so for folks that might not be aware, can you talk about, the groups that you train with?
Yeah, so my training obviously started here in Montana. I started with Straight Blast Gym, Missoula. Had a great experience there. I trained there for a little over a year, and then I switched to Dog Pound Fight Team and Zoo BJJ here in Missoula. I had the opportunity to train with some really tough fighters that have been in this sport, like few of them since they were able to walk, really. They were wrestling and whatnot. And I also got to train with a female pro fighter that's from here, Lauren Wolf. She was always my main training partner, always pushed me and learned a lot from her. And then I got the opportunity to go to California and train with Timo Yama. Not too long ago, I got to train with Carla Esparza, and
Wow.
that was such a cool experience being a part of her camp. So I learned a lot from Carla. Shout out to her for taking the time to work with me, and a bunch of other people at that gym. But that's basically, and then I've also trained at Fight Ready MMA in Arizona. I did that for a few days while I was there. Ethos Martial Arts in Arizona as well. Protege Performance in Arizona. So I've just kind of been all over to get the experience.
I mean, that had to have been so cool. I am such a big Carla Esparza fan. And she has so much experience and knowledge and wisdom to draw off of.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, her wrestling is phenomenal. And like I said, being able to be in her camp with her and learning from her was just like an experience of a lifetime.
So, Kailey, you have 2 fights under your belt, a lot of high quality training, and it's been a year where you've been trying to recover and make sure you're at 100% before coming back. But, in the short term and a little longer term, what ultimately are your goals in this sport?
Well, my goal is to be the best. I want to make it to the UFC, become a champion, and there I want to get my black belt in jiu-jitsu and also compete at world championships for jiu-jitsu. Just making myself the best I can be as an athlete. That's really my goal.
So, Kailey, thank you so much for being here today. This has been a great conversation, and I can't wait to continue following your career and see how things end up and when you're going to get in the cage next, to see the steps that you take forward. At this point, if you have anybody that you want to shout out, anything that you want to say, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, first off, I want to thank you for having me on your show. It means a lot. When you asked me to be on your show, I was like, that's super cool. So I appreciate that. And then I would also like to thank my sponsors, FNX Supplements, Elevated Reserve CBD, X Marshall Gear. I'd also like to thank the gyms that I've been training at recently, Zoo BJJ and Timo Yama. I would like to thank everybody who just supports me. And yeah, that's about it.
Folks, this has been another interlude episode of Roto Bowler's official MMA podcast. Tap that. And let's say I had this pulled up 1 second. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. You can follow Kailey the Aggressor Frank at Kailey Frank on Twitter. I think that is your exact handle. Let's see. I want to confirm for this. Kailey Frank 18. That's where you can follow her on Twitter. This has been an interlude episode with Kailey, the Aggressor Frank. Pay attention to her, folks. She is fun to watch. Have yourselves a great week, and check out my MMA picks and USFL betting content. Check out Kailey Frank. Thanks for listening. Peace.